GM, everyone. So today or yesterday, let's say, is a big day. It's kind of reminiscent, to replant. Haven't had so much being pushed in the Beanstalk ecosystem. I guess since then. We have a lot to go through, whether it's Beanstalk Farms or Beanstalk, let's say, updates, and then updates in general within the Beanstalk ecosystem. And I think the biggest news of all would be the launch of the root token. There's probably a lot, to talk about there, and then maybe where the future of it takes us. Mr. Manifold, how are you doing?
Hey Maud, how are you, man? Doing good on this end.
First of all, congratulations on the incredible launch of the root token.
Thank you. There was a monumental effort by a lot of people to get this up, and couldn't thank everyone involved enough. A lot of new code, UI work, PR, Twitter, etc. It's just kind of a massive coordination, and there's just so many people involved, and I was just actually a very small part of it. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone.
Definitely, and as you said, a lot on the root front has been announced yesterday. I'm just going to drop the root token website in the Barnyard chat, and in there are multiple things that can be done. You can check the dashboard on the root token itself, and then there's a link to the white paper, and then finally on how to use it to bet on the World Cup, or just use it on betting in general. Manifold, do you want to maybe just quickly take us through what is launched and what can be used, or how can you use the root token, and then what can you use it for?
Sure. So you can mint the root token with a handful from a handful of popular ERC20 tokens, or with Bean deposits. And once you mint the root token, the first real partnership / product we've announced from a root utility perspective is these Paradox root markets. And I think the World Cup market just launched about an hour ago, which was a big milestone. A lot of people were working really hard to achieve just a date in everyone's heads, and we were able to reach that with an MVP. So pretty excited about it. But as far as the roottoken.org site goes, pretty simply can get into root tokens. And there were some issues on the UI with the claim and redeem yesterday, but those seem to have been patched up. So looking good. And want to say that this is a MVP UI. We plan to offer a more advanced version for more experienced Beanstalk users to really understand the analytics behind minting, claiming, and redeeming. And also the last kind of comment I wanted to make, Maud, is on the governance. We frankly are not too different than how Beanstalk is set up. It's pretty much the same. And we also aren't opposed to transferring ownership to the BCM, but just really didn't want to be a burden. There's a lot that's going on, and thought that this was probably better set up independently. Rooters get to vote on proposal with their roots, and the multi-sig enacts the will of the DAO. So if you are to mint into roots, you do retain your voting power in Beanstalk. You're just having that voting power enacted by the multi-sig. So you're not really giving up any governance rights. But anything governance related, always up for improving it. This is not a perfect solution, but just thought I would note that.
Thank you, Manifold. And I guess there are three things maybe that we can discuss briefly, and one of them is governance that you've touched upon. I wanted to go back a bit to minting on the root token, just to summarize it and see if this is how it's done. So now you can go to the root website, and then you can mint the root token. And the way that you can do that is, as you said, using different ERC20 tokens. But what happens is that whatever token that you use, it eventually gets converted or swapped for beans, and then those beans are deposited in the silo and then transferred to the root contract, so root holds it. So far, so good. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounded good to me.
Okay, and then when you return it or when you swap it back to claim back beans, do you claim back beans or do you claim back a silo deposit?
You claim a silo deposit, but we're working on this. I don't know if this is live yet. You'll be able to, redeem into a non-silo deposit as well in one transaction.
Okay, all right. The second bit that I want to discuss is what can we do with the root token, but maybe before going to that, we touch upon a bit or continue the discussion on governance. So as you said, right now, when you have a root token, you can still vote on, through root, and then the root multisig will vote on your behalf to Beanstalk. If there are, let's say, 60% of root token holders voted one way and then 40% voted in a different way, does then root vote, just 100% based on whatever passed, or does it, push or send 60% and 40% accordingly as well to Beanstalk votes? Does that make sense?
Hey, Mod, sorry, I just lost connection for a second. The last thing I heard you say was 60-40 split.
Yes. So if it's a 60-40 split, would root multisig then, would it also vote 60-40 split to the BIP, or would it just vote whatever passed within root, and then root acts as one vote?
Yeah, that's going to have to be an update that is done where that split can be enacted. But right now, it's the will of the DAO from a majority perspective.
Okay, thank you for that, Manifold. And just to highlight, right now, whatever way the root, let's say, votes won't really sway or impact.
Just to hop in, as far as we understand it, Snapshot doesn't support partial voting, and so that's where the problem comes from.
Understood. And one thing worth noting is that right now, just given the size, or let's say where we're at right now, it's unlikely that root will impact or direct, let's say, certain votes. That can change in the future, not only with root, with anyone who accumulates silo deposits or stock. But we'll see. Root is the first experiment, let's say, and we'll see where that how that develops. All right. Then lastly, and the biggest of all, so now I have a root token with me, Manifold. What can I do with it?
Right now you can go bet on the winner of the World Cup or the winner of Thursday Night Football tonight, if you're a sports fan or you're inclined to do so.
Okay, and I am going to drop that link in the Barnyard chat. And can you maybe just quickly explain to us how does that work? So this is a partnership with another protocol, or a protocol called Paradox, that uses root to place bets on their platform. Can you maybe just quickly, in a minute or two, explain how does that work, or what
Sure.
What are those pools? How do they work?
Sure. So you can go to app.betparadox.com. If we go to the soccer tab and click on the World Cup winner pool, and you can see the 32 different teams, and you can see the current odds of these team tokens, how much volume's been traded, and how much is owned by you if you made a bet. And kind of the way this works is that if you bet on a team token, the odds are dynamic. So there'll be more of that team token. So the payoff of that team token will be lower, in theory. However, you kind of expect potentially, if this market is efficient, for these lines to be arbitraged in some capacity to the market efficient lines. The key to realize here is, though, if you plan to bet, it is more positive EV to bet earlier than later, because with the way this specific pool is set up, there is a 1% fee for new entrants on the pool that gets paid 100% to existing token holders. So, by betting earlier, you kind of have also a call option on the future volume of the pool. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does, and to others who want further reading, Brian shared the link to parimutuel betting, or how that works. And of course, feel free to drop in or ask any other questions. Okay, Lord of Barty says, how can they raise a proposal to change soccer to football? I guess Paradox do have a Discord server. Maybe reach out there and raise your point, Barty.
I love it.
Yeah, I for one share the same thoughts or lingo, let's say. So football is the one that you kick the ball with your foot. All right, Manifold. Great launch. What are the next steps for Root?
Thanks, Mod. Next steps, concretely, likely more pools that'll be spinning up, taking into account all of the amazing and thoughtful feedback collectively Root and Paradox have received over the last 24 hours, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of that. So, want to be agile, want to be able to iterate fast. So, everyone on this DAO call and community in general, the feedback is really valuable. Please keep it coming so we can keep making improvements to the product. The Root betting exchange is also being developed right now, and that's, a more complicated build. So, taking in steps, but those Oracle contracts are under audit at the moment. So a lot of good progress being made there as well. And just really want to thank, everyone that's been involved in the Beanstalk community on any of the projects that have gotten, live this week. It's been a monumental effort. I've seen it firsthand. I know for a fact some people on this call right now probably haven't slept much in the last 72 hours. So just wanted to say thank you, and the community appreciates you.
Thank you, Manifold, and to the rest of the Root team. Definitely a great launch, and in such a short period of time. I think up to just a few days ago, a lot were surprised and wondering how would something like this launch so fast, and it did. So congratulations again, well done. Very excited, inspiring as well to see things being built on top of Beanstalk. Excited to see what Root will also do in the future, and then everyone else that builds as well on top of Beanstalk.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you.
Okay. I think we can move to Beanstalk Farms, and we can go back again to discuss anything about Root if others here want to. Once again, this is an open forum, so at any point you can just unmute yourself and join the conversation or ask a question. Moving to Beanstalk Farms, Guy, how's everything with you?
Hey, Mod. Doing well. Obviously, very exciting to see all the different things happening on the farm, on top of the farm, etc. There was a lot of coordination work leading up to yesterday and today. So I think, I guess, as far as things to share with the DAO, the one thing I would just add is obviously the bugs reported that led to EBIPs 4 and 5 were clearly valid. The Immunified Committee and the BCM moved quickly to update Beanstalk accordingly. So the Immunified Committee is currently discussing the corresponding bounty for those two reports, and there should be a couple different snapshot proposals that go up in the next few days, and we'll announce that when they go up.
Thank you, Guy. And just to summarize that, and maybe this is something that we've mentioned in last class, EBIP 6, which was pushed, fixes all of those, let's say, bugs that were found. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a great call out.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay, we can move to development, and we have some updates there, namely from Chad. Chad, how's everything with you?
Pretty good, Mod. Definitely been a busy week. So I think most of the engineering related updates have probably come across in the form of some of these new launches. But in general, have been sprinting with the team to get all of the necessary components for Root and Paradox to launch completed. Some of those were announced yesterday. That includes a new version of the subgraph that's been deployed to the decentralized network, as well as the first beta release of the Beanstalk SDK, which in short allows simpler interaction with the Beanstalk contract, as well as usage of Pipeline Depot, which is what enables you to go on Root's website and, for example, swap ETH directly into Root, which performs a number of transactions. So that was a crucial piece of the setup. We've got that done. Paradox is currently working on implementing that tech in their UI, so you should be able to place bets with Roots directly through the Paradox website, for example, starting with something like ETH in the coming day or two. Beyond that, I mean, just continuing to make some progress in the background on UI bugs, on the PodMarket V2 UI, and a number of other things.
Thanks, Chad. And I wanted to spend some time discussing a few of these updates, starting maybe with what I would say. Maybe they're all equally as important. But starting with the pipeline and depot. So this is a separate or a new, let's say, a protocol of itself. And then, as you said, what it enables you to do is, do multiple things or multiple transactions in EVM in one transaction. So you pile them all together, and then you're able to, instead of doing multiple, transactions, you just group them into one. Can you maybe just briefly explain to us how does the pipeline and depot work? What are those two things? How do they come together? And then how can others use them? And you've briefly mentioned that it's currently being used by Root, and that's what enables it, to be used with Paradox. But can you maybe tell us how will that can others use it as well, or is it open for others?
For sure, yeah. I'll try to keep this fairly boiled down, but feel free to hit me with questions if anybody has them. Okay, so there's a couple different pieces of the stack that launched this week that all kind of fit together to enable both the functionality that I described a minute ago on Root and on Paradox, but then also more generally within Beanstalk and even within the Ethereum ecosystem at large. So I think we've talked a lot about the specific projects that have launched in the last couple of days, but I think even more exciting is the fact that what we've built so far and what we're working on is actually more, it's valuable in Ethereum generally. And so there's a lot of opportunity to continue building on some of this tech. So to kind of break down the pieces that are important to this process. So most notably is pipeline, which Maud, I can see you just linked. The paper linked there describes both pipeline and depot. I'll get to depot in a second. But basically what pipeline allows you to do is call multiple contract functions in any number of contracts in one single transaction. So for example, I might call swap on curve and then call Beanstalk's deposit and then call Root's mint function in a sequence. And currently, if you're in traditional Ethereum transaction building and on most user interfaces, you can't do that sequence of actions unless a Solidity developer has explicitly written a contract that does all of those for you in one shot, which is prohibitive and frankly doesn't give front-end developers and other developers on Ethereum the ability to compose things very well. So Pipeline enables this, is its own independent contract. And kind of one of the things that's unique about it is that it behaves as a sort of sandbox. So the idea is that you can load Pipeline to some assets. Maybe I send it some beans. I perform some series of actions using those beans. And then I pull the resulting assets, whatever's left over, back out into my account. That might be a deposit. It might be some other token that I swap to, etc. And along the way, Pipeline is able to basically hand off information between different requests. So for example, if I swap Ethereum into beans, I'm able to figure out how many beans I received in that swap and then use that to do something else. Which sounds trivial at first, but actually in the world of building these transactions, that particular process of doing the information handoff is pretty complicated. So we've simplified it down and basically built a spec within Pipeline for doing that, which is outlined in the white paper if you're interested. Cool. So moving on to Depot. Depot is a piece of the system that basically loads Pipeline with certain types of assets. So in the current Depot specification, you can load Pipeline with ERC20 tokens, 1155 tokens, deposits, etc. Beanstalk deposits specifically. So right now this is deployed as an independent contract, which anybody can use. It will also be deployed as a facet called Depot Facet, which will be accessible within Beanstalk with the next BIP. So keep an eye out for that. And then maybe the last piece to highlight here is how the Beanstalk SDK in particular fits into this whole thing. So the what Pipeline is doing is basically providing a spec through which you can call multiple different external contracts, and then also providing a spec through which to perform that process of moving data between transactions. But ultimately, it comes down to a developer to figure out how to compose a transaction so that it does all the stuff that you want it to do, right? Like the Pipeline kind of enables the composability, but it's still quite hard to actually sit down and write out all the different steps and account for some of the sort of nuances of transactions in Ethereum. And so what the Beanstalk SDK is trying to do is provide a bit of a wrapper around all of this technology to make it as easy as possible for developers to set up these complex transactions, sort of staple on different calls to different contracts, and then easily pass data, from this point to that point, and just basically hit go. And so we spent the last couple of weeks building out the first version of this, which is what Root and Paradox are using, which you can see on GitHub. But Mod, let me know if that covered kind of the scope of your question there.
I think it did. Thank you, Chad, for explaining it. And to everyone here who's with us, who maybe understands this and is able to summarize it, write it in threads, or explain it in a blog post or whatever way or medium that you prefer. Do that and make use of the community grant. There's a lot of things happening in Beanstalk. Just announced yesterday and continue to do so. So if you think you're able to summarize and rephrase, what's happening in your voice, I would again encourage you to make use of the community grant and do that.
Totally. And I'll highlight one last thing, Mod, which is that Pipeline is intended to be a public good on Ethereum in some way that Beanstalk is making heavy use of to enable its low cost multi-layered transactions. But ultimately anybody can call this contract and perform actions themselves. And so we would love to start seeing some other protocols taking advantage of Pipeline to help their users have low cost transactions that do lots of unique stuff. And from a building out the Beanstalk ecosystem and building out the ecosystems of developers on Ethereum generally, like I think Beanstalk and Beanstalk Farms can provide a lot of help and guidance and just generally be a focal point for that process, since we're the developers of this technology. So just keep that in mind, everybody.
Thank you, Chad. All right, sweet red beans.
Yep. Hey, Mod.
How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, thanks for asking. As far as updates go on the design side of things, at this point, sort of have finished the pod marketplace on the UX side. So we have all the frames ready to go and all the components ready to go. I think, we're ready to build that, and I think it's sort of already underway, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of finish that up as we go along here. Other notable developments on the design side of things, we've started working on a Figma UI kit. So the goal is that, somebody can, if somebody wants to, add or build on top of Beanstalk, they can sort of clone the Figma file and be able to use the same components and same structures that we already have. So that's sort of in the early stages, and then over the next week or so, hoping to come back around to some of the farm function related stuff that we were working on before the pod marketplace. So specifically things like rinse and deposit, claim and deposit and some of those actions and chaining those together. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Sweet Red Beans. I can maybe give a quick brief update on marketing. So we've been busy mainly with the Root launch. We've reached out, to those who we know are contacts with regards to that. We find some of them come on our Discord to ask more questions. Others, are just checking it out of interest. So we hope that the next, step is that for them to cover it maybe in more in depth or details. On a press release front, we've had interest, or we see the interest so far picked up is from gambling, websites, but not yet crypto. So as as the World Cup continues, we hope that interest from them will be picked up then. Lastly, the educational video. I know this has been going for some time. We have received a draft for the education video. We had some comments, so we're updating that, and we hope to have it in the next few days. The last thing that I wanted to say is that I've reached out to two newsletters that we want them to do some deep dive on Beanstalk or the Beanstalk ecosystem in general. We expect the deep dive to be paid, but it will be independent, so it wouldn't be written by us. It wouldn't be influenced by us. It is more of come check us out, see what we're up to, and write what's happening with Beanstalk. Nothing is done yet, but this is more of sharing to the DAO ahead of it maybe happening. All right, that's it on my end. Publius, we've spoken a lot about what's happening within Beanstalk. What are your feelings? Manifold, I know he just said that a lot of people have been having little sleep in the past few days, and I bet you're one of them. What are you thinking? What are you feeling on what's happening? And what are your thoughts on the future as well?
Well, Maude, on this end, it's definitely been a long couple of days, if not weeks at this point, trying to get to where we're at now. Gonna try to put out a tweet thread shortly to just shout out all the different things that have gone on and people that have been working. And from our perspective, it's really special to be a part of. Not sure how we got so lucky to be surrounded by so many hardworking, mission-driven, self-sacrificing individuals. It's just it's really a true blessing. So lots of bean farmers and non-bean farmers. The Paradox guys have not been involved in Beanstalk at all, have just really all come together to put out a lot of different stuff that is all generally composable, let's call it, and really starting to feel the power of building in DeFi. And it's all don't want to get ahead of ourselves because there remains so much that can and hopefully will be done, but definitely a cool couple of days.
Agreed. And I guess the Paradox example is, it's one of the examples that even if you don't build directly on top of Beanstalk, you're still, you can access the Root economy and, the Bean economy. And, Root is one, or the Root token is one thing that facilitates doing that, just given its fungibility. Okay, Publius, while you have here, here's a question from Lord of Barty, and they ask, does Beanstalk have any exposure or expect any potential exposure to the FTX collapse?
So, to some extent, Beanstalk has exposure to everyone and everything because its counterparty is the market as a whole. In practice, unless USDC, USDT, or DAI either collapse or have significant depegs, it's unlikely that Beanstalk will be directly affected. But again, to the former point, let's say that Beanstalk existed at scale prior to the collapse, it's not unreasonable to expect that people would withdraw funds from Beanstalk or withdraw liquidity from Beanstalk, whether it's logical or not, or because they need liquidity or for whatever reason. So generally, liquidity tends to be pretty correlated, and therefore, it's not unreasonable to expect that even now it may be harder for Beanstalk to attract liquidity just because of the environment that it finds itself in. But at least as of now, unless USDT or USDC or DAI really breaks, not gonna see too much direct exposure, primarily because of the small size of the liquidity at the moment.
Thank you, Publius. And Barty, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just want to take a second to talk a little bit about the discourse that's been happening in Discord in particular. And on the one hand, the discourse in the Beanstalk Discord and about Beanstalk is, from our perspective, really one of the defining features of the Beanstalk community, and the high quality of discussion and debate is something that has been in place very early on within the Discord. And early bean farmers like Mr. Mochi really have had and continue to do an amazing job of setting the tone for what is the right way to act in a decentralized, pseudonymous setting where censorship really isn't encouraged. And obviously there is the potential for censorship on Discord, but the nature of Beanstalk being an attempt at a censorship-resistant currency doesn't really make sense to have a lot of censorship in the forums, or at least it's hard to logically get behind something like that. And the result is that there have always been and continue to be infinite ways for people to raise their voices and opinions and make them known. And want to explicitly talk about over the past couple weeks have really felt like the tone and generally the way that people are talking, and it's not everyone, but certainly some people in the community, things have gotten very negative. And that's not to say that criticism isn't welcome and healthy and, from our perspective, appreciated. But it's all about how criticism is presented. And really just want to take a moment for those that care to encourage those of you that are seeing people being really negative to highlight it and to shout it out and to try to encourage them to be more constructive in their ways that they communicate, and to also lead by example. And those of you that may hear this and think that you may not be particularly constructive at the moment and are being negative, we really do ask that you reconsider the way that you're communicating, because it's not helpful, and it's definitely negative sum behavior. And to some extent, this is some of the tragedy of the commons that Beanstalk is going to have to deal with in perpetuity. But for those of you that care about the long-term success of Beanstalk and feel like most of the people here certainly do, if the goal is to conduct oneself in a way that is conducive to Beanstalk being successful, being negative certainly doesn't fall into that. And so there's lots of problems that are worth discussing solutions to. There are lots of problems that may not be currently raised, and people that are shouting out those problems, we salute and appreciate you. And it does feel like things are at a little bit of a turning point, right? Where a lot of different contributors have raised publicly that they're thinking about leaving either Beanstalk Farms or Bean Sprout. And from our perspective, it seems very clear that a large part of that is the lack of desire to spend time justifying things to trolls in the Discord. And with good reason, because everyone that's currently, from our perspective, everyone that's working, certainly that's paid by the DAO to work on Beanstalk, is on the BFC or paid by Beansprout. These people are working around. I mean, it's really amazing to watch how much people are giving to making Beanstalk a success, and then to pop into the Discord and see not just negativity, but things that are so egregiously wrong that they don't warrant response. And that's why I think most people don't respond. And then these comments sit there, and it's really toxic. So from our perspective, censorship really isn't an option, or at least not one that we'd ever propose or support within the Discord. But just want to take a second to shout people out for just really not adding value in the way that they are capable of. And yeah, I think we can all do better. So on this end, have not been particularly participative in the Discord dialogue, and more focused on class and the DAO meetings as an opportunity to chat. And to some extent, that's because we want more and more Publius to have less and less of an influence on Beanstalk and its community, not more of one. And therefore, it's very hard to feel like we should be weighing in on every last thing. And we don't want to weigh in on every last thing, certainly not. But the point is that it's getting hard not to respond to the way that people are talking. Opinions are welcome. Wrong opinions are welcome. You can't be right about everything. But at the end of the day, how you express those wrong opinions, or even right opinions, that's really, I think, what determines whether you're a positive contributor to the community or not. And have been talking about this now for a few minutes, so we'll cut it here. But feel really like this is an important issue, and if the contributors, and this is not speaking on behalf of them, this is from our perspective speculating, if the contributors are going to continue to dialogue so closely in the Discord, the community members that are looking for responses and looking for engagement, we challenge you to do a lot better in how you solicit that engagement, because feel like everyone that you want answers from is more than happy to engage and try to get A, any misunderstandings clarified, but B, any friction points and tension points and things that are wrong or can be improved. I promise there's not a lot of hard heads in this community at the moment in terms of people that are working on Beanstalk. There's a lot of flexibility of opinion that's required. And so just, again, encourage everyone to think about how they're trying to get answers, and think about how they're trying to get information and communicate themselves, and really try to be a lot more constructive.
Thank you, Publius, and definitely for taking time to address these points. The one thing maybe I would add is the level of ownership and responsibility I've seen with Beanstalk contributors is really the highest I have experienced with anyone I've ever worked with or been around. A lot of these people or contributors, or maybe all of them, feel obliged to respond and answer, to Discord or to anyone who approaches them, not because they have to or they're required to, but because again, they feel responsible. I would say is that if you're asking someone a question, definitely go ahead and do it. But if you want to have a debate, or maybe you're asking them, why aren't they doing things the way that you'd expect them to do it, there are probably 2 ways or 3 ways to do it. One is for you to step up and do it yourself. There are many ways open, within Beanstalk Farms or Beanstalk itself, and then there are grants and Beansprout too that you could do. As you step up and do it yourself, or reach out to the contributor and maybe have a call with them, or this is the forum, the DAO meeting. Come to the DAO meeting and discuss it, and have an open conversation, with whatever it is that you want to discuss or talk about. But having it as a discussion in just by chat does a lot of things where it first of all distracts the contributor, and then at the same time there is a lot of loss, let's say misunderstandings or a loss in communication.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yep.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna go to the next topic, but please.
No, to dig a little bit more into this, even right now in the Barnyard chat, there's discussion about the Syncubate Hats Finance proposal, and I think this is where the rubber meets the road. So let's run through an example here. First off, the question comes, hey team, could you comment on Sync's proposal to move forward with an effort to recover funds? That's the first problem. Who is team? Are you asking Publius? Are you asking Beansprout? Are you asking Beanstalk Farms? There's a lot of entities that are collectively all contributing here and asking about, the team to comment. Even that type of thing that's not constructive. So in general, direct, I think questions like that and again, maybe, I mean, Ed Salad, feel free to hop up here. I see you massively push back here. Feel free to hop up here and discuss, because we don't claim to know the right answers here. But the point is, who are you asking for a comment from? Are you asking for a comment from everyone? Are you asking for Syncubate to come up here and talk about what the latest information is on this front? And the bigger point is that this question almost insinuates that there's anything that needs to be done from Beanstalk Farms or needs to be done from Beansprout. And at the end of the day, I think there is a question of whether or not the DAO can actively direct resources. Like, this is something that is important to the DAO and want Beanstalk Farms to work on. That's interesting. But that currently doesn't exist. Currently, the structure is, at least as we understand it, that Beanstalk Farms is given a budget, and the way that Beanstalk Farms is allowed to spend that budget is very clearly defined. But there's certainly at least currently, there is no way for the DAO to mandate that certain projects fall within the scope of Beanstalk Farms. Now, perhaps these are processes that should be introduced, but at the moment, I think this is where there's a lot of tension, and see people respectfully disagreeing with us in the chat, and love that. Well, our opinion should not be the only opinion or law here by any means. The point is, what is Beanstalk Farms' obligation? So Hats Finance came and presented to the DAO. It doesn't seem like there's much that needs to get done from Beanstalk Farms' perspective, and not a member of Beanstalk Farms, but or Beansprout. If Hats wants to go ahead and do this, they should do it. If they need help from Beanstalk Farms from an integration perspective, they can ask for help. But from our, at least as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any sort of additional outreach from them since the DAO meeting. And therefore, the real point here is, what is the obligation of Beanstalk Farms or Beansprout to follow up with others that aren't actively doing stuff? And it's a really hard position to put Beanstalk Farms in, or Beansprout, where someone comes with an idea and says, this makes sense, this is a great thing to do, but there's work to be done. And then it's just left out in the open. And some stuff is going to get picked up by Beanstalk Farms and other stuff is not. But right now, there's no process through which the DAO can mandate that Beanstalk Farms does stuff. And it seems like some things are getting left hanging because I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, and there are lots of ideas. And at least from what we can tell, all the people that are working on Beanstalk Farms are really busy. And so, yeah, it's great. We can do all this other stuff, but everything comes at the margin. And so there's this implication from questions like this around, hey, what's the status on this? Well, frankly, there's no status whatsoever because no one's done anything on this because someone proposed an idea and that's it. And I mean, this is not an environment where people should feel like just saying, hey, what's the status on this? What's the status on this? What's the status on this? When? That's going to get something done. Frankly, that's really destructive. Come and do it. Come and do it. Everyone who's currently working on Beanstalk is working basically around the clock. So people want more things to happen, come do it. But otherwise feel like a lot of this, and again, it's not about the criticism itself. There is a friction point here around process and procedure that really should be better defined so that there's not this tension. But the way that things are being talked about, there is still this implicit notion that Beanstalk Farms or Beansprout are responsible for getting all this stuff done because people are asking when. And yeah, I think it's putting all of the contributors in a really tough spot, and most of them want to quit, the ones that are public facing, because they can't, there's too many things that people want done, and what is there to say other than happy to help facilitate it if someone wants to do it? And otherwise, people are stretched really thin. So take someone, and I know I've been talking for a while, and happy to yield to you in a second, Egg Salad, but take something like Paradox. This is a different group of people that have been building their own protocol and asked for help from Beanstalk Farms and from ourselves, from Publius, to try to incorporate roots into their protocol and meet the World Cup launch date. And there have been a lot of people that have been working, to Mr. Manifold's point, basically without sleep this week to try to meet their deadlines. The point is that's something that the individuals that are all contributing to Beanstalk Farms all self-selected and decided this is stuff that they want to work on. And it's clearly directionally the right stuff. The SDK is now live to some extent. The subgraphs are live. There's all this stuff that's been built, which is clearly directionally right. So people have been sprinting on the projects they've been building anyways. But at the margin, there's been a lot of sacrifice to help the Paradox team. But that's because they've been taking the lead. They built their own protocol. They did basically all the work, and then it's a question of how to get it over the finish line. There's all these resources here that can and hopefully will help lots of cool projects get over the finish line. But the idea of, hey, there's this cool thing, it was presented to the DAO, and now just because it was presented to the DAO, Beanstalk Farms or Beansprout, because they receive funding from the DAO, are responsible for now following up with these proposals. That's ridiculous. And that's a waste of time, energy, and resources. So that's our perspective on the matter. Currently, there's nothing defined, and the lack of definition is clearly the tension point. And the going forward would encourage the BIPs that upgrade the budgets to better define what the reporting obligations are and what the process is for the DAO to mandate certain things are priorities. But right now, really just want I hope this is constructive. And Egg Salad, didn't mean to soapbox you to the point where you can't comment. So feel free to chat.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Fabulous. Look, I've been also on the Discord singing everyone's praises. I think you've all done the most amazing job. When I asked that, like, I've seen that proposal. It looks interesting. And I think as you've actually highlighted, and I think this is why perhaps the soapbox isn't quite as justified as it might have seemed, is that we have a process problem, we have a systems problem, and so of course you will have people looking to the people taking generous salaries, albeit for great work, to be in charge of putting more time in than perhaps these, as the Guilfoyle says, shareholders that think they are board members. I mean, to me, this proposal seemed interesting. Of course, I think we're also facing the fact that this is a DAO and we're all working that out, right? That is not something that a lot of people have lived in and lived with for a long time. So we're all getting our heads around it. I've been in hierarchical organizations for 20 years, so I'm putting my hands up to my ignorance about how this stuff goes. But yeah, to my mind, the conversation that we're having, if you want to make it really constructive, says, who on the ground or who on BSF that we might elect or vote for to be on the BSF is in charge of a sort of operations and management of the not only the community initiatives that are coming through, but also how the labor to meet those initiatives happens, right? So, and this is perhaps what happens when you also got amazing engineers and thinkers and finance people working on something, but you don't necessarily have people with an awful lot of operational experience, and maybe what we're facing is, that I'm here and I'm here for the Beanstalk and I believe in it. We've spoken at length about that, and I know that it's felt that I'm sincere and my contribution is sincere here. So I think what I ask for from you at least is also a little bit of kind of assuming the good in what I'm saying, potentially. I mean, my question might have come at a bad time, and
there's no assumption of malintent, sir. So
cool.
If anything, just took it as a perfect example of how even unintentionally, these questions all run into the same problem, which is the team owes some sort of something on a given issue.
But like the team, say, right now, just to follow up, so like you say, though, I think this is about, you mentioned BIPs about who's reporting to who and how and different ways in which the objectives and roles of the core members of Beanstalk Farms, which could grow, right? And I know that you're saying take the initiative and make it happen. My proposal to get either funded by the committee or put onto Beanstalk Farms has been sort of changed in momentum by FTX collapsing, and it's kind of given me a new perspective on what needs doing. So I've been working on that. So I'm up for taking initiative. But I think certainly we need to be able to, and I don't know how it happens, but some sort of discussion forum that possibly I can take some initiative off after this call of saying, who on this Discord wants to kind of have a more management like role or be on a sort of a subcommittee of sorts to say, all right, we're taking seriously some of the comments and the proposals in the Discord. We're going to then decide what type of resources they need. I mean, would this be Beansprout, right? And then we end up having conversations about which I think is where I heard you say the words negative sum thinking, or I saw them in the Discord, which is, Mr. Manifold, who's done a crazy good job getting Root off the ground, is being paid by Beansprout. So then you have, perhaps Beansprout is the place where you would have people saying, I'm going to delegate tasks. I'm going to choose which projects I encourage to happen. Does he have enough time to be doing that? Does he need help doing that? Do you know what I mean? These are questions that I think are
just real quick on that last point. So just want to share my view with Beansprout from an operational perspective and an EV perspective, and it might not necessarily be the right view, but it's just want to be transparent of how I kind of view the effectiveness of Beansprout. So I've hiring more people is actually very easy to do. And if that's what the DAO thinks is a good use of funds for Beansprout, we can certainly hire away and fill in these roles. But I take great pride personally knowing that, Beansprout has been positive EV to the protocol from, 8 digits plus. And, I think the only sell pressure arising out of Beansprout was in, pre-exploit last year for a marketing expense on some merchandise, like a couple thousand beans. So, just want to be very clear from a personal perspective on like how I view the success of Beansprout, like from an objective sense, is that. And so, when things like, more project management or more operations or a moderator to mod the Beansprout channel for any questions come into question, like, yeah, certainly, that can be done. But I think from my perspective, just personally chatting now, like I just don't have the bandwidth, like I'm just stacked. So I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. And I also don't want to see sell pressure arising from some of these additional roles, frankly, which is why I thought it's higher EV to just leave it alone. But like if the DAO wants Beansprout to have these additional roles and communication channels and project management, et cetera, it might just be a better idea just to pause Beansprout for a while. And, maybe the DAO can revisit if they want Beansprout in like 6 months. I'm also happy to do that because no one's really stepped up for the role. And the few people that I've talked to are very hesitant to take it on. So just mentioned Beansprout, so I just thought I'd go on that tangent, but please, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I follow. As I've said, thanks for sharing. When I'm saying this it's clear you're very busy. It seems like if we're going to behave like a kind of I don't know, what are we talking about? A $30 million protocol, and we really want to get serious. I think then, and you don't have the bandwidth to kind of have that 1,000-foot view over everything that's going on, some of the potentially interesting initiatives that are coming up, then we need to have someone doing that. And that doesn't denigrate or take away from your value or what you've added in terms of EV in the past, And I think I am reluctant to kind of, I'm of the opinion that I'm only as good as my next day's work. And I think I don't want to rest on our laurels here. Like we've had
of course, there's nothing that's not forward looking here. There's nothing at all that's not forward looking. Like we just had major project launches this week, and we're actively working around the clock. There's nothing that's not forward looking from an EV perspective. I think the personal point I'm trying to bring up is that and I'm bringing this up directly right now in the DAO meeting because this was obviously a big topic of conversation in the Discord this past week, is from a personal perspective, just so the DAO knows, is like, I don't need to be in the Beansprout seat. I'm doing so because I think it's positive EV for the DAO. And I totally understand if there's criticism or whatever, or more, communication, yada, 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 that wants to come out of Beansprout. Like, that's totally fair. I'm just saying in my capacity, that probably won't happen. And, I don't necessarily even align with that, like adding additional overhead to achieve, that specific purpose. So I would probably shut it down on my end, and, anyone's welcome to spin it back up or start a Beanstalk incubator and try to get funded, through a BIP. Just wanted to make that clear once again, and that everything we're talking about is forward looking. But I used up, the past as an example of my mindset today and on these decisions.
Sure. And that's, I think all I'm seeing is that with this case in point and a couple of other things I've seen over the last few months, then we just, there's more we could be doing, and it's no fault of anyone there's
infinitely more that we could be doing, but this is totally, there's infinitely more we can be doing. I think no one's in disagreement with that, but I think to Publius's point, it's like, we're all human at the end of the day. So, there's trade-offs that need to be made. And, this is probably, again, just like a definitional issue or something, but, I think, people are just can't do everything. You have to make trade-offs in life. Like, you have to prioritize certain things over the other.
No, so look,
yeah.
I think this is a slight straw man, right? I've worked in business for 20 years. I know that we can't do everything, and I appreciate people's hard work. Okay. And when I'm talking about this is a $30 million protocol, I'm saying that perhaps, at least several people I've talked to would suggest that it should be of a primary import to the people being paid by the protocol that we pursue any way to recover our funds actively. And if you don't have the bandwidth, then you need to be letting us.
Why is that the case? That seems like a
Why
ridiculous
should we be recovering the funds stolen from us?
No. It's obvious why, if we can recover the funds, we should recover the funds. But what's
Right.
not obvious is why the people that are paid by the DAO through Beanstalk Farms or through Bean Sprout, that should be their priority. That's just, I don't know how you can make that jump.
Well, because
like everyone wants the funds back. Everyone
they're
has to
paid by the
determine
DAO
in their
that was
own
exploited.
judgment. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think that's my signal. They're paid by the DAO that was exploited, and if we want to build trust in a long-term way with the market, we need
everyone has to make a judgment on what they think is the expected value on time spent trying to return the funds. To me, speaking personally, I think the expected value on time spent recovering the funds is close to zero. I don't think the funds are recoverable. Now, I
Right.
hope to be totally wrong, but I don't want to spend any of my time working on it. If you do egg salad, you should. You should. And better than that, the whole structure here is that you can propose a grant to Beansprout right now to get paid $20,000 to lead a recovery initiative. Or Syncubate.
Just to answer this, look, I get you, but no, please notice I came in like not completely dogmatic, saying where's my money or where's the money. I said, could you comment on it?
Because it's not about money.
But if you're saying no, that's a semantic issue. If you're sitting here and then saying personally you don't think it's worth it, that changes my opinion, right? That helps me understand how much this needs to happen, and I am deferring to you and totally willing to defer to your expertise in modifying my opinion going forward. As it had stood, I hadn't seen what happened with that proposal.
That's why typically I wouldn't comment on something like this and have refrained from commenting. I'm giving it as an example for why it's unreasonable for you to think that everyone that's in some way involved with Beanstalk should view it as a good use of their time. So in fact, as Publius, I think it's pretty inappropriate for us to be commenting on specific issues like this, or at least if it's not inappropriate, nonetheless, we'd really like not to comment on it. We want everyone to have their own independent opinions that are generally unmanipulated by hearing what Publius thinks. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the way we'd like things to work, because Publius really shouldn't exist. And you're saying, well, once Publius tells me what I should think, that this is the whole point. So
a dialectic conversation allows people's opinions to get better. And heavy is the head that wears the crown. I mean, you do know a lot, and I look to you as an author and an interesting author in what this space is. So don't take it that I'm a zombie.
We appreciate that, but the bigger the point that we want to keep getting back to is the process. There is, as you said, a process issue, and from our perspective as Publius, we have gone through incredible lengths to make it, or at least try to make it, and we've been successful. So hence why I said make it, such that there are as little reason that anyone could say that they can't get paid to work for Beanstalk. And so our original comment about negative sum was not in reference to anything you'd said, Egg Salad. The negative sum was in reference to the notion that there isn't money to go around, or that the time, like the current budget is being misspent because things aren't being done fast enough. That's
I don't think that. No. So just to have clear on the recording, I don't think that at all. That's not where I'm coming from.
Oh yeah, we're not attributing that to you in any way whatsoever.
No, and I think we have some optimization to do organizationally and some systems thinking to do, which to my mind is something I have a view on and something I've done before. And you know, I can take it. Like it's something I'm interested in helping with. I don't want to come across as someone who destroys but doesn't build. So I've taken
again,
enough
none
of
of
your time.
None of this is directed at you individually, and certainly not the point about the negative sum thing. That was instead in response to your comment about the soapbox being unwarranted. Wanted to just clarify why we felt compelled to talk about this. It's because the mindset here, and it is a fine line, because once you have a money printer, which Beanstalk is, there is a fine line between minting 100 million beans to fund all sorts of different ridiculous initiatives. But at the same time, there is no limit to the beans that can be minted. And so everyone that wants to do something funded by Beanstalk can always propose to the DAO a BIP to fund it. If they don't want to go through the extremes of funding things through a BIP, they can fund it through Beanstalk Farms or Bean Sprout, and they each have their own different structures. But the point is, if you don't like the way things are happening in either of those organizations, sure, like constructive conversation about things is always good. But the other thing is that you can just go do your own thing. That's the part where it can get negative sum. It's like, well, I could do better. Go do better, or go do something slightly different. But this constant criticizing of people for not doing the best, for not having done everything, and again, not at all directed at you here, Egg Salad, but getting back to the more macro point about the discourse, there needs to be a repositioning of our collective understanding of the value that we have available to here, to us here. And anyone that wants to do something, certainly if the manpower is the only cost, Beanstalk can almost certainly afford manpower or woman power, but human capital that is willing to work and is mission driven, and I mean, kind of goes without saying, there's a lot that can be done, and we issue a call to everyone listening, come do it. Seriously, come do it. Come do it. So, and we will help you as best as we can do it. But please keep in mind that when there's all this criticism around why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't that happened? Why hasn't a million different things happened? So let's all reposition how we're thinking about doing in general as a DAO. And, hopefully this isn't the last time we all talk about this, because we're all learning here.
Thank you, guys. I wanted to just shout out. There has been a few mentions on maybe on operations, and I wanted to shout out to the operations team. We have an incredible team here within Beanstalk Farms, really, and they do everything that the Beanstalk Farms team needs or requires from an operations point of view. And all of these reports are out there. They're very detailed, on time, and so on. Maybe if there is some points on discussions on operations on or the process of what the DAO wants or does, that could be a new position that would be brought up. But from operations, and I'm speaking on Beanstalk Farms itself, on the things that is required for the team to do their job, and generally just Beanstalk Farms itself. I think all is well. The team is performing, is exceeding expectations. They're doing all what we of course no one does everything that we want. We have unlimited things that we would like to do, but really with the performance and the efforts that are coming out, can't ask for more. We continue to ask for more, but we can't ask for more. Okay, we'll give it a few minutes, maybe see others who want to, add in, share their thoughts, or even start a different discussion. I know that we have crossed the hour, but we can extend this meeting if required.
So maybe just to wrap this up, Mod, because I feel like there's a lot of constructive conversation happening in the Barnyard chat, and wanna add on to it because it's a little inspiring. Is the conversation around the role of the founder in being the thought leader in the direction of the protocol. And on the one hand, we do intend to put out a roadmap of where we'd like to see Beanstalk go. But then ultimately, it's up to everyone working on Beanstalk Farms, Bean Sprout, everyone that's a member of the DAO or not, to decide whether that's the direction to build or not, or maybe it's slightly different. But the point is, that's the direction that we're going to build. So we, as DAO members and as contributors, we have our own opinions, but the the way to contribute to Beanstalk as Publius or as anyone is to just do it and propose it to the DAO. Hey, here's a BIP that, and maybe you shouldn't go dev all of it before discussing it with the DAO at length. But the concept is anyone in a decentralized and autonomous setting should be able to propose anything. And we don't want to be the only ones to propose things. We don't want the things that we propose to be the only things that get approved. We want this to truly be an open and thoughtful community. And if anything, there is a risk of the decision-making falling by the wayside and things moving in the wrong direction. But think that if at the end of the day, and this is sort of tautological, a good on-chain governance mechanism will effectively create a system where the people that are choosing wrong things will lose, and the people that are choosing right things will lose. So have been trying to think a lot about what this all looks like, and when the system moves back to on-chain governance and how it's related to this development ethos of anyone can contribute anything, and then it's up to us collectively to decide what to include. That's really the direction that we want to see this go, and feel like that's the most open and decentralized way to do all of this.
Thank you, Publius, and definitely look forward to that roadmap. And as you said, this conversation can be picked up, and we can continue discussing it, and it won't be the last time we discuss it as well. Okay, Chai Kitty asks any news on the upcoming poker tournament. So Chai Kitty, initially we wanted to first of all run the tournament this month, and then we said let's run it in December. But just given how what came out this week and the business, let's say that the team is in, we are now targeting January 2023, so 2 months from now. All right, I think we can end this call now, unless anyone wants to say something. Unmute yourself or say it now. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us today. Once again, congratulations to everyone who shipped or released products, and namely speaking, Manifold and the Root team, Cujo for updating the subgraphs, Al or Alex for the SDK, and Cyberchat and Publius for the pipeline and depot. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.